I'm a big fan of a movement which has come to be known as drumless rap. I hate that clumsy term too, because I think if you are hip to the ways of languaging the movement right now, the better, cognomen for the goddamn thing is expressionist rap, stemming in the expressionism tradition of art in general. If you're not familiar with that, it was fine visual art that was based on evoking feeling rather than illustrating reference. In simple terms, it was a bunch of painters and artists who were more concerned with trying to paint how things feel than how they look. So as a result, a lot of times that style of painting dissolves the image altogether. You don't know what you're looking at, but you definitely know what it makes you feel. It's the kind of paintings that are there for you to invoke your own soul. They take you into this very open space of free interpretation where you come into contact with the brushstrokes, with the techniques, with the moods of the colors, and you question the forms in and of themselves. Instead of drawing or painting a fire truck, I draw something that invokes the same level of urgency, danger, red, and emergency that might come if you saw a fire truck. And maybe might ask the question, why does red feel more urgent than yellow? Why does yellow feel brighter than blue? We hardly look at shape, form, and color in a way where we analyze the forms themselves, getting to how emotion is even associated with these forms. See, that's just me nerding out about expressionism. So you can imagine why I love expressionist rap. It's rapping stripped of all the direct objectives and objects that we come accustomed to hearing rappers talk about. See, traditionally, rap is like a form of mimetics. It's a meme. Rappers are living, breathing memes. They are embodied expressions of culture. And what they do is they distill the most recognizable parts of their culture in the form of language for those who know what they're talking about, but they also teach those who are not familiar about the worlds that they come from. What rap did when it was exported from America to the rest of the world is that it taught people about America. It taught us about things as specific as what people ate, what people wore, what they called certain things, from women to success, what was the most important values they had. It gave us a real window into the Black American experience, the American experience in general, to the point where we found ourselves drawn to identifying with aspects of that experience that we know and taking on language that we've heard from rap songs. See, this is why it's a meme. What do memes do? Memes give you recognizable images, popular images, in the form of simplistic imagery. They give you so much information that is known because of dominant cultural patterns in the form of something minimal and simplistic. And that's the same thing that rap has done. It has been a code to take parts of dominant cultural patterns and spread them out into the rest of the world. But then, as it's innovated, there are those who forego the actual description of the objects in the world that rappers form a part of, but try to go into the feelings themselves. There are rappers whose lines are not meant to be interpreted literally because they're not trying to tell you something literally. They're trying to inspire something emotionally. So if somebody raps to you in a way that is expressionist, they are not telling you something vividly, explicitly, and obviously. They are actually using words to try and describe how something feels, describing pain, describing anger, describing lust, because all of these emotions have colors that go along with them, have images that go along with them. If you think lust, maybe you think pornography. Maybe that makes you think of lingerie, condoms, maybe that sweat, spit, saliva. All of the things that you associate with sex just embedded in the word and in what that word makes you feel. The color red, lips, so many things. So expressionism uses imagery to weave together emotion instead of being directly descriptive or literalist and giving you the perspective of something as it explicitly presents itself. So the reason I'm going all gaga over this movement is that I truly believe these are cats who are taking the art form of rap to a level where rapping is now more than just like a level of poetry that's there to work in its functional use of eliciting imagery, but they're using rap as a form of poetry which analyzes feeling itself. You could even say these are meta rappers because they're looking at rap from rap's perspective. They're using rap to analyze rap, and not in a way that's heady, not in that typical complex method that was made so fashionable by the rise of hyper abstract rap during the 90s. Because abstract rap is a totally different monster to expressionist rap, even though people might think they're one and the same beast, because a lot of expressionism tends to be abstract. What do I mean by abstract? It tends to be, the word abstract itself means to move away from. So it literally means to let go of anything explicit and direct. But the difference between abstraction and expression is that abstraction is deliberately trying to use language in a way that is not anchored. But expression is just attempting to use language in a way that's anchored in nothing but emotion. And it's a fine line. But what separates the two is that an abstract rapper is more concerned with verbosity, with language. An abstract rapper is concerned with what words to use to illustrate the image most vividly. An expressionist rapper is more concerned with how to strip down, how to use as little words as possible to try and say the deepest things. And this is the power of expressionist rap, is that the joke of the lyrical, spiritual, critical rapper is actually a term to make fun of the abstract rapper. Because in order to get to the best way of depicting images through words, abstract rappers started using richer, broader, and deeper language. They started realizing that mammoth, colossal, and gargantuan say big better than the word big can be big. But when you are an expressionist rapper, you're able to use any other word but big to give the feeling of what bigness kind of endows or imbues. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're trying to operate on the level of the feeling. You're no longer operating on the level of the medium of language and the image. So as a result, the two are not the same. One could say abstract rap also called forth into being expressionist rap. But now expressionist rap is its whole new tradition, called drumless because the expressionist rappers, in their goal of highlighting emotion, felt that the drum was a hindrance. Because what do drums really do in a beat? They set the tempo and the rhythmic pattern to how you can rap. The breaks in the beat determine your timing in how you are able to rap inside of the beat. In abstract rap, hyper pop rap, gangster rap, whatever rap that has existed so far has always used the beat and the drums as a way to set the metronome, the organic heartbeat of the song. But the beats that expressionist rap uses as a canvas are devoid of that artificial heartbeat. It says find your own rhythm in this. Find out where you think the flow is. Because essentially, it's everywhere. And this is why the kind of flows that expressionist rap have given birth to is highly unpalatable to those who prefer classical rap with a beat. Because when you hear a complex rapper or a simplistic rapper, you hear somebody rapping within the beat. But when you listen to an expressionist rapper, you hear somebody rapping almost with the beat. Sometimes behind the beat, beside it, under it, on top of it, anywhere but in the midst of it. It's almost as if the beat itself serves as nothing but a backdrop for the emotions to lay themselves bare into the human soul. What am I talking about? I'm talking about something very creative in rap that is now bubbling in South Africa as well. Before I ramble on about further differences between expressionist rap and other forms of rap that existed before, because I will definitely do an episode of that. I want to talk about the budding expressionist rap movement in South Africa. There have been a list of rappers, and I'm probably going to flash their album covers here somewhere because there's just, at this point, it's too many to mention, and I feel like if I mention one, I'll leave out somebody else. But there have been a generation of rappers who are being influenced by the expressionist rap scene going on globally. And they're taking that same expressionist impulse and instinct and bringing it to the canvas that is South African music, experience, and culture. One such artist is KUSHÍ. And I think Why God Gambles is probably, for me, one of the greatest rap albums to come out in this year, if not the greatest. The reason that this project is so insanely creative and brilliant is that in listening to KUSHÍ's previous offerings, there was a sense of finding the samples, the textures, and the kind of language that could work for South African audiences, but also for global audiences in general, to bridge what it means to be a South African in the rest of the world. And so KUSHÍ and his contemporaries have this interesting challenge of being South African enough to catch the immediate wind of the people they're rapping about and they're rapping to, but to be global enough to not lose an audience that is primarily English speaking. And so the beauty of how he raps here is that he uses a beautiful South African dictionary of English words that we know when we hear, but that are not so far-fetched that they feel pompous or pretentious. You see, it's not like complex rap where he's using big words for the sake of painting big images. Again, it's expressionist, so it aims to use the simplest terms, but in ways that convey the most poetic adventures of the emotional experience. Why God Gambles is an essay on two things: the gamble that is blackness and the kind of existence that one lives when they are trapped or defined in the social construct that is the black, with all of its ghetto monstrosity, but yet all of its beauty, flair, resilient creativity and ingenuity. And yet, what it means to be black characteristically is that your life is always on the line. Your life is always in limbo. You're always somewhere closer to death than the white, to the point where your existence could be characterized as social death itself. What does it mean to die socially? Is being black. And I think Baba Kush elucidates the feelings of this gamble of blackness in the form of the metaphor of gambling, dice, in the form of the metaphor of risks, drugs, the alcohol we take, the vices that we have. He uses all of these things as linguistic devices to ground them somewhere understandable and relatable. For instance, in the opening track, you see the perilous risk of black life. You see the bad luck, as it were, in those who have been counted as less fortunate. You see how even that is not an excuse to negate accountability and responsibility, but it places those virtues on really flimsy ground. Because I mean, what's the use of being responsible if your whole entire existence has already been prescribed by a system which tries to engineer where your life goes by locating where you belong and where people like you are destined to be? I think Baba Kushi wrestles with this kind of question, but he does it in a way where it's not a directly explosive attack on capitalism. It feels very smooth, very trickstery. It's weaving in between the lines so that we can actually notice the spaces of opportunity that allow us to see and, most importantly, feel what's being said to us. Skaftin, for instance, with its dusty bounce, its haunting loop strings, and the Angelo Superstar feature, where there are two voices, Angelo being that high pitched and KUSHI being very mellow and rapping as a narrator who feels almost invisible in their own individual life, but present as a kind of omniscient voice which speaks as everybody. And this is the beauty of this project, is that Baba Kushi really finds himself speaking as every person. It's like reading a novel. He becomes the concerned grandmother. He becomes the drunk who's thrown their life away. He becomes the person in the corner noticing the highs, the ebbs and lows of township life. He becomes the ultra-critical, militant person trying to break free, but at the very same time trapped by the very alienating depression that can be ikasi. I mean, swinging into 22 Albert Street, which in contrast takes the agitation and brings us into a mellow, classical soul sample place where his rapid, rambling flow feels like a free verse confession of some of the deepest, darkest secrets that township life has in store. Only the kind of things you would know if you understood. And I think this project does not negate the importance of the rapper as a mimetic artist, as an artist of the meme. Because, I mean, look at a track like Mahu, where, I mean, you gotta love the phrase, I need my wallet as thick as Mahu. You know exactly what he's talking about. But at the very same time, you understand it's a metaphor for aspiration. It's a metaphor for that very agitating feeling of not knowing where the next meal is coming from. It's being hungry for sustainability in the very same way that some men thirst for Mahu because of the thickness. And so it's things like this where he cleverly is able to like take this place of raw emotion and still give you pop references to weave these emotions. I mean, this album for me contemporarily answers my long wish for rappers to actually reference the world they come from. Baba KUSHI literally uses South African pop culture, from the detergents we use, the kind of feel of our architecture, our TV shows. He references generations alongside days of our lives. He references Bafana Bafana. He references a world that could only be understood by a South African. And this is what is largely missing from rappers. They use references that primarily don't come from South Africa. When there's so much slang, so much culture, so much newsworthy pop culture scandals that have occurred in history that are enough for any South African to use South Africa as a metaphor and as an analogy as a rapper. South Africa is a beautiful place to be a rapper because there's just so much to rap about. And yet, South African rappers rap about more American things than they do South African flavor. And I think this is what set apart the AKAs and the Questas and the Pro Kids and maybe even the Baba KUSHIs in this generation where we are, where we can have an expressionist rapper showing us that regardless of the tradition, your main goal as an artist is to speak to your people first, to speak to their experiences first. So, I mean, by the time you get to Monte Casino Mavuso, where is the Monte Casino? What is it? You understand that this is a historical gambling site, Egautini. You understand the legacy of the things that have gone down at Monte Casino, the shady deals, the drug heists, the affluence, the dirty drugs, the money, everyday people just trying to win and get lucky. So who is he in that story? He's everybody. And I think he uses, the woozy, smoky jazz atmosphere of that sample to talk about how selfish of a game oppression is and how volatile it puts everyday people in a position. And so ultimately, here we have a grand painter who's using this very country as his paintbrush to give us the great South African portrait. I mean, he cruises into one of my personal favorites, Zamalek. Personal favorite because as an alcohol drinker, I find it mind-numbingly annoying when moralists and purists attack alcohol or any kind of substance as the issue, when the issue is the very emotions that bring people to hold on to substances addictively. We're not addressing the capitalism most of the time. We're not addressing the situation. We're talking about alcohol as a problem, when alcohol is what people misuse to try and run away from their problem for the most part. And Zamalek is the perfect distillation of this idea of alcohol being nothing but a vehicle for people's expression and emotion. And it's like him and Umabonga, Willing Listeners Forum, are standing on opposite ends of this dilemma, where he raps, in these hissing vocal samples, that are as melancholically, like they're melancholy as they are melodic. Yeah, that's what they are. They feel really gloomy, but at the very same time, it's catchy. And what it does to you is that he tells the story of friends and distant cousins and people he knew personally who abused liquor. Mabonga, on the other hand, is the abuser. He's speaking within the story of the person who finds themselves in this vicious loop. And it provides such a refreshing perspective that is very much still socio-political, with references to SAB and references to Culling Black Label as badges of popular blackness that have literally thrust themselves into the consciousness of the way black people think they can enjoy their lives. I mean, I could go on and on, from Eliza's Lounge, which is the day after the drink. It feels like the hangover. It's the morning, watching the ghetto go by very, very slowly. And it's how he's able to go from isiZulu to English and navigate this Tosake in a way that still allows you to hear. Again, this is not abstract rap, folks. This is very, very, very understandable. But it goes to the bone of what we feel. It's not trying to become a structure. It's trying to become the lifeblood itself of what rap is about. I mean, the interlude slash song from China has the direct references veiled to you a little bit, but then it goes back into VR6, which uses the metaphor of the car. You know, this very classical South African status symbol of power. And again, it's more than just a car. It's any kind of high octane thing that gives men the fuel to want to be seen and play their lives in a way that gambles with them. You see, this is the beautiful power of this project as it goes from Ponzi schemes to losses down into the title track, God Gambles, way into the end. I could say a lot about this project, but what I do want to say is that it's an absolutely excellent testament to the South African ghetto and to how to paint gloom in a way that is very pessimistic, but that is hidden with this hope people don't realize is rooted in pessimism. I think, especially as blacks, when we understand the worst of what our lives has become, it is only there where we can navigate and learn to live in that moment and learn to discover what we can actually undo as opposed to what we can really break and change immediately, slowly and gradually. That there are things that require urgent attention, but there are also things that require slow brewing reflection. And this is all painted in this Afro-pessimistic schema that Baba Kush amazingly paints. Definitely an album of the year contender for me, but also the dawn of a new generation of rap, a generation of rap that is returning us back to the message, to the feeling in its purest form. My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother, and if you fucks with these kind of analyses, subscribe to the Headspace. If you already have, keep engaging with us. Much love.